Thanks for joining us. Hi, Adam. Hi, Jennifer. Thanks for joining us today. Welcome.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey, everyone. I'm Patrick with AppleChat Healthcare. We're just getting started with today's webinar on nurse recruitment. We do this a couple times a month, and we're excited to get going with today's event. So we're just going to let some people join into the room here, and as they're coming in, I'll give a bit of an introduction. As I said, my name is Patrick Thiele. I'm with AppleChat Healthcare as the Chief Operating Officer. At AppleChat, we work on recruiting nurses for healthcare organizations across the US and Canada. Our specialty is focusing on finding passive nurse candidates from non-job board channels. And we also screen and engage with every applicant to help our clients get more nurse hires quickly. So if you're interested in what we do, please send me a message in the chat or on LinkedIn, and I will connect with you and we can talk about what we do and the results we get for clients. I'll post that in the chat here shortly as well, my link. So as I said, we host webinars twice monthly related to nurse recruitment and recruitment in general. And today we're going to talk about attracting new grads to long-term care jobs. Our webinar today is going to be hosted by Adam Chambers, who's our president of AppleChat. And our guest is Jennifer Schmidt, who is the talent acquisition manager at Guardian Healthcare. Guardian is a Pennsylvania-based provider of senior living and rehab services in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and West Virginia. So in general, we know that hospitals pay more sometimes, at least, and often attract a younger demographic. So Adam and Jennifer are going to review some of these perceptions and stereotypes about long-term care jobs and the comparison to the hospital world. Jennifer is going to discuss how Guardian Healthcare works to attract new grads and students, as well as employ experienced nurses within its facilities. And Jennifer also will talk about ways healthcare leaders can build relationships with local nursing programs and collaborate with colleges to create mutually beneficial partnerships. So we're looking forward to that. For everyone who's joining in the room, and I see people are coming in, we're very interested in your questions and your feedback during the event. So if you do have questions for Jennifer or Adam, feel free to post those in the chat, and they will try to get to those during or at the end of the conversation. And I mentioned that I'm going to post a link in the chat that you'll be able to connect with me on LinkedIn. At that link, you'll also be able to join our Facebook group, which is called Nurse Recruitment Secrets. So you can find that link in my post, and you'll be able to join our group. We also have a monthly newsletter that you can join as well. And then, of course, you can sign up for our future webinars and actually watch our other recordings of webinars that we've hosted in the past. So I'll post that, and please join with us in whichever format or formats you'd like to. So on that note, I'm going to, again, welcome Jennifer and Adam, and I'll turn it over to Adam for the conversation. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, thanks so much. So everyone, hello. The background for this was I put a post on LinkedIn looking for future people to interview from the world of talent acquisition. Jennifer popped up and told me a little bit more about what she's doing at Guardian Healthcare. And it really struck a chord with me because a lot of clients that we work with in long-term care often have a perception that the college grads or the current students are for the hospitals. They can't get them. They don't want to work in a long-term care facility. And I'm hoping that Jennifer today can challenge that perception and help share some strategies that everyone here working either with a long-term care department in a hospital or in a long-term care senior living style organization or rehab or assisted living, whatever it may be, Jennifer can help. So could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your current position at Guardian Healthcare?
Yeah, so hello. Like everybody said, my name is Jennifer. So I'm currently the talent acquisition manager at Guardian Healthcare. I've been with Guardian for 3 or 4 years now. And really what we focus on is trying to find those new and innovative ways to get nurses, right? Everybody needs nurses. That's not a secret. And nurses really do have kind of the pick of the litter when they're getting ready to apply for jobs after graduation. With Guardian Healthcare, something that we really push that resonates with our current staff and our future staff is that we're embedded in our communities. And I think that's something that all long-term care facilities can really play up as well is, we're a part of the community. We're here for not only the residents staying with us, but their family members, and then just other general members of the community as well.
Okay. Very nice. Yeah, I think that family member thing is something that I'd like to touch upon. So I think if we could first start with some kind of misconceptions. I can pose the misconception that I'm seeing in the market, and then maybe you could challenge it or give your opinion on it. So the first one would be new grads want the excitement of a hospital. They don't want to work in a long-term care facility. Challenge.
Yeah. So quite literally on my first day, the chairman of our board walks into our orientation group and he says, nursing homes aren't sexy. Nobody wants to work in long-term care. And he's not wrong, but he also isn't right. So I don't want to say that that's absolutely a correct statement. But all of those nursing shows on TV, they're ER based, right? They're ICU, ER. And when individuals are thinking about getting into nursing, that's what they're seeing. So they're like, yeah, I want to do that. Like working in the ER, look how exciting this is. There's all these TV shows about it, and it really hypes up kind of that adrenaline. But working in long-term care as a nurse, you're really able to build a relationship and care for an individual. And I think that's the other portion of why individuals get into nursing, is because they want to care for somebody. And if you're doing that in an ER setting, you're spending 10 or 15 minutes with a patient, right? Going through your checklists, and then you're sending them back on their way. And that's it. That was your relationship with that individual. But in a long-term care setting, you're really building that relationship. And you see Mr. Smith every single morning, and you get to know him, and you talk with him, and you talk with him about his life and his family, and just really get to know him as a whole individual. And I think that's the other portion of nursing that we don't tap into enough.
Mm-hmm. And are you getting the feedback from new grads who want to work at Guardian Healthcare that's the reason they're coming into it?
Yeah, so that's what we get. We get a lot of, I wanted to care for somebody. And that's amazing. And that's that motivation to get into nursing. But then I kind of, like I just said, I kind of play up that, well, if you work in an ER, like you just said, you might be interested in, yeah, you're going to care for a lot of different people, but you're not going to have that relationship. And I think being able to build that relationship strikes that chord.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And the second misconception assumption would be that it's harder to provide them a career progression pathway that excites them and is going to make them want to work in a long-term care facility. Could you speak a little bit about what sort of progression plans that your facilities offer?
Yeah. So absolutely a misconception in long-term care. There are so many different career paths and opportunities available for growth. If you want to start as an LPN, move into an RN role, most, if not all, long-term care facilities especially are going to help with your tuition and your education to go ahead and do that. And then as far as kind of RN movement, we have those administrative roles. You can do a registered nurse assessment coordinator role. You can do unit manager roles. We have staff development, quality assurance, infection control, all of those really specialized positions for our RNs to get into that might require additional certifications or additional trainings, or just, some experience that you're gaining while working in the facility. And then obviously into, assistant director, director of nursing roles, and different compliance level positions as well. So there's absolutely growth within long-term care facilities.
Mm-hmm. And how do you present that then to potential candidates who are in school or just coming out? Do you present it in the same manner a hospital would, or is it done in a different way?
So I'm not 100% how every hospital obviously presents what their growth ladders are, but I always tell people our growth ladders are so fluid. Just because you might move into an infection control role one day doesn't mean you have to keep moving up in that same ladder and keep moving into different and more complex infection roles. You can take a unit manager position and then jump over to quality assurance and then jump into infection control. It's kind of however your interests lead you, and you have that opportunity to gain all of those different areas of expertise.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So a talking point would be you can try a lot more different areas if you're in the right.
Yeah, you're not stuck going up one rung at a time. You're really kind of able to jump back and forth, whatever works for you at that moment.
Okay. And then now maybe this might be true in a sense, but it's the pay. So how do you touch upon pay whenever you're talking to new grads or college students?
Yeah. So I think pay is going to vary. Even within our network, our pay rates can vary depending on, the metro that they're in. Is it a high census building, a low census building, a 20-bed facility versus a 200-bed facility, right? So that all does vary greatly. So I would say, though, personally, within Guardian, most, if not all of our pay rates within the facilities are competitive with the hospitals. And some of them are even paying more than the local hospital networks. So that's, again, just all going to kind of depend on your demographic.
Okay. So, but that's sort of a conception, right, in the market out there that everyone
they think
pay
it's
less.
Pay less. They are not as fast paced as the hospitals, and those things are just not necessarily true anymore.
Mm-hmm. So whenever it comes to this perception, I'm getting the feeling that there really needs to be like a push at the college age, or just for the new grads to let them know that it's not like that. What sort of strategies are you guys implementing to make sure that they know what a long-term care facility actually is these days and how versatile it could be?
Yeah. So I think a lot of the times the hospital networks in the areas have that power to really infiltrate the schools a little bit more than some of the smaller skilled nursing networks. Guardian is a larger provider within Pennsylvania, but we're still competing with very, very large hospital networks and hospital systems. So their names are getting through the schools all over the place. So what we do at Guardian is we really work to develop relationships with the career development teams at each college or university, the instructors themselves, the program directors, right? You reach out to them and it's not just, hey, I have an opening. What can you do for me? Like, send me a student. It's, hey, I work in recruitment at Guardian. We would love to help you guys out. Can we sit on a panel? Can we talk about careers in long-term care? Can we do a presentation? Can I help review resumes for your students, do mock interviews? And it's really building a two-way relationship and a communication with those schools versus just constantly sending, hey, I have this opening, share it with your students, because they're going to get bored of you. They're going to get bored of you real fast, and you're never going to have that organic flow that you need to develop with those schools when you're competing with the hospital networks.
Okay. And do you have any examples or experiences that, like, any sort of anecdotes?
Yeah.
I could pull this out a little bit.
Yeah. So I also, when I reach out to the schools, I don't wait for them to tell me, hey, yeah, we have a panel coming up in 2 months. I reach out to them and I was like, hey, I'm available next week. I'd love to come in and talk to your class and do a mock interview with your students, your seniors this year, next year, or something like that. But I've worked really closely with a local tech school to, I call it a cluster of our facilities. So we have a couple buildings that are fairly close together. I've worked fairly close with her. I've come in and done mock interviews for her seniors. I do presentations for them quite often. I'll come in and I'll talk about kind of that general career progression that you can take in long-term care. Even if I'm not able to pitch Guardian that day, I'm still pitching long-term care. And those are the opportunities that you can have with us. And again, breaking down those misconceptions and those stereotypes that we've been talking about. And it's really just getting in front of the students, right? And as I'm doing those things for her and her class, she's then reaching out to me like, hey, I have this student. She was a little nervous to talk to you when you were here, but here's her resume. Do you want to give her a call? So then you're able to kind of build that relationship on the back end that way. And once they see you and they start kind of talking to you more and more and more, that's what you start getting.
Okay, yeah. So they get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, they get to know you as a person and not just the recruiter for that company.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like the idea of teaching them about long-term care, not just your company.
Yeah, and that's, again, part of the battle, too, is breaking the misconceptions, teaching them about long-term care and not going into everything as a recruitment pitch for Guardian. Sometimes it has to start as that recruitment pitch for long-term care, and then we can kind of sneak Guardian in there as we're able to.
If they want long-term care, like you're going to be the person that they view as the long-term care person. So it's a good strategy. I like it. We've found that our clients, if they actually acknowledge some of these misconceptions in their advertisements, nurses really empathize with that as well. So going out and saying like 3 myths about working as a nurse in long-term care, and then it would be the myth, and then it would be the actual fact. We find that to be really useful as well.
Yeah, yep. And we take that head on in a lot of our advertising as well. Career growth is something we promote in most of our recruitment ads. Just right there, like you have career growth, you have educational opportunities with us. And a lot of the times we'll put our pay rates right out there as well. Nowadays, I don't think that's something that you can hide behind, competitive wages in the market. Sometimes you just have to put it out there. Like, we'll pay you this much money at this facility.
Yeah, that's a challenge. I think, when people don't want to share that, we find that to be a challenge. And even if you put an ad on Indeed, now it'll put the estimated salary.
Yeah,
So
which
you
is
can
a
either tell
whole
them the
can
fact
of
or the
worms.
estimation. Yeah. So we found that campaigns with the pay before much better. I wanted to ask, what would you say are some of the challenges then for recruiting college nurses and new grads for your organization?
Yeah. So when I am doing a recruitment specifically for Guardian, so I'm not just going to talk about long-term care or doing those mock interviews or things like that, I do get a lot of I think I want to work in a hospital. I grew up watching this show and I really loved it and I want to work in the hospital.
Yeah.
Right. And what I love to say to them is, do you want to come in and do a tour of our facility, walk around, talk to one of our unit managers who's been there for 10 or 15 years, and just kind of get a feel for it? Because you might realize walking through that it could be a great fit for you. And I also like to stress to the new grads that if they do start a path in the hospital networks and 6 months in, they realize that it might not be for them, that doesn't mean nursing isn't for them. It just means that setting isn't for them. And in nursing, there's, a million different opportunities that you can take. So if one setting doesn't work, try out a different one. I tell people, and my employer might hate me for this, but I tell them that there's no shame in job hopping, especially in those first few years after graduation, when they're trying to figure out what setting works best for them.
Okay. Do you find there's a lot of, well, not a lot, but there's nurses that are coming from a hospital setting and saying it's not right for them? Is that something that other people could track onto? Yeah.
So we do see that. We see people who, like I said, worked in a hospital setting for 8 months, and they come into an interview and they're like, it was just so chaotic. I didn't know who I was talking to. I had 5 minutes to spend with this patient, and I had 8 other patients who also were screaming and yelling at me, and it was just not their environment. They felt very overwhelmed, and it wasn't to care for people and why they got into nursing.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side of it, we do also see people who start their careers in long-term care, work in long-term care for so many years, and then try to go into a hospital network. And they're like, oh, I can't. Like, I need to get back into long-term care. This hospital setting is not for me.
Right.
So It does happen both ways.
Yeah. So it sounds like if you're open to that and you don't cut ties if they leave, they'll come back and pay dividends.
Yep.
So if we could talk a little bit about the advertising side of things.
Yeah.
So where are some of the without revealing too many secrets, like the best channels if a long-term care facility wants to source some new grads? Where should they advertise?
Yeah. So, you're not going to advertise in the newspaper anymore for a college grad, right? When's the last time somebody in that age demographic opened up a newspaper? So it's more of those internet campaigns. We do a lot with streaming services now. So YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Prime, Hulu, like those services that you're streaming and you can buy advertisement space on, versus buying advertising in commercials on regular cable networks, or like I said, the newspaper ads. Sometimes billboards are even not necessarily what you need to advertise on these days, because yes, you get that visibility, but you're not targeting it as specifically as you need to get those new grads. And then obviously trying to get anything up on the college campuses themselves, advertising through geofencing and things like that.
Yeah, it sounds like with the digital marketing, you can target an age group better. Are you able to target the shows that they watch on Prime and Hulu?
You can target
You know?
by like their interests. So not necessarily, I can't target if somebody's watching like Chicago Med, which might not even be on the air anymore because I don't watch TV. But yeah, you can't target if they're watching those specific kind of shows or programs. But you're
Yeah.
able to target their interests. So that kind of
Okay.
translates into what they're watching.
hmm We have a question here from Selena who said, I think she wants you to talk about how do you overcome like a low pay objection. So a nurse gets in the interview and says, "Oh no, it's not enough compared to the hospital down the road."
So a lot of that can be overcome with the benefit package. So if our pay might not be quite as much as the hospital's making, are we giving them more benefits than the hospital's giving them? Personally, with our company, our health benefits are very, very, very affordable. So that's usually a way we can kind of reel it back. Like, yep, your hourly rate might be $1 or $2 lower, but you're paying almost half of what you would pay into this medical program. So that kind of takes into your take-home pay. The different things that we can offer our employees. We offer them hardship loans at our company, almost like a payroll advance in a way. We do daily pay options. So there's just different benefits that you can kind of pitch to them that, yes, the hourly rate might not be quite as much, but with X, Y, and Z, you can really benefit more working for our company versus the larger network, if that's the case.
Okay. Yeah, I hope that answered your question, Selena. And in terms of then families, so you said they're embedded in the community, and could you like, go a little bit more into that? I assume you mean like the residents or family members they bring in, or how does that work?
Yeah. So one of our at Guardian Healthcare, we are neighbors caring for neighbors is kind of our tagline, our slogan. You'll see it posted all over our website and things like that. And what we mean by that is we're really embedded in the communities. Our founder would go around his hometown with his pickup truck and say, "What can I do for you today?" to his neighbors. "Do you need me to take out your garbage? Can I get you a grocery order if I know you can't go out?" And things like that. So that's what we've tried to then relay into each of our facilities. And a few years ago, right after I had first started, I'd gone into one of my buildings and I noticed that they had a raffle set up. And I was like, "Oh, this is nice. Like, what are you doing this for?" And our administrator said, "There's an individual who lives in our community, so not within the facility, but just in the area, who is trying to get a wheelchair accessible van. His family can't afford it. So we're hosting this raffle for them." So employees had brought in different donations. And then over the course of, I think, 2 months, employees were buying tickets, residents were buying tickets, family members, some of our corporate employees who weren't even necessarily at that building were all fundraising for this individual. And we ended up raising a couple $1,000s to help him with that wheelchair accessible van purchase that he needed.
Okay.
So it's things like that, partnering with animal shelters, school districts, just trying to get out there and help anybody in the community, even if they don't live with us.
Yeah, I can see how that visibility would help, especially nurses will have eyes on the community, and then their family members might even be a resident. So,
Yep.
I wanted to bring up another question here. Sharon Krieger says, "Are you speaking more about LPNs or RNs?"
So we do hire both LPNs and RNs. And I think personally in long-term care, an LPN has more opportunities to do more with their license and their training than they may in a hospital network. But almost any of this can be applied to both LPNs and RNs.
Okay.
RNs probably are the ones who want to go to the hospital networks and the ERs a little bit more. So those kind of tactics would be geared more towards the RNs.
And a big one for our long-term care clients has been CNAs. They generally find it hard to recruit and retain CNAs and get them to show up to interviews, etc. Any comments about the CNA market?
Yeah, so CNAs are definitely, really, really crucial in the long-term care. We have probably, 4 CNAs to every 1 LPN who works in a facility. Off the top of my head, it probably is a higher ratio than that. But getting our CNAs at Guardian Healthcare, we actually have our CNA training program in-house. So we can hire individuals who are interested in becoming certified and help send them through the class. It's an in-house class. They go to one of our facilities for the trainings, to do their clinical rotations. And through that, they're really starting to get ingrained in our Guardian family and our methodology. And then once they complete their program, they already have coworkers that they're friends with because they were there for a few weeks going through the class and the clinical rotation. So that's kind of what we've been doing to address the CNA need, bringing them in and training them ourselves.
From training them from scratch, so you don't need to. Okay.
Yeah. So if they have a direct care or some sort of, home health background, something like that, it's great. But we'll take a cashier who's interested in getting into healthcare and give them all of the foundation that they need.
Yeah, I really like that. I really like that. CNA, certified nursing aide or assistant, Jennifer?
I've seen both. We do. Yeah, we use it interchangeably too.
Yeah. Sarah just said, what's the CNA? Certified nursing assistant or aide, who would be assisting with more like the day-to-day duties, isn't it, of care, rather than the high-level clinical stuff.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yep. They do assisted daily living. They'll help, showering, bathing, getting dressed. That one-on-one companionship, things like that.
On that topic, before we move on, this isn't related to grad sourcing, but it is very, very important, I think. What sort of ratio of RNs to LPNs to CNAs would you be going for?
So it'll vary a little bit building to building. In long-term care, in Pennsylvania, long-term care, you have to have at least one RN in your building at all times because we don't have a doctor like a hospital network does, and our RNs are really, the highest. But that could be the ADON, it could be the DON, could be a number of individuals. For the most part, we do usually have, one RN in each unit. And then depending on how large the units are, 2 or 3 LPNs on the shift, and then again, probably 5 or 6 CNAs.
Okay.
So we're not overwhelming any one individual with a patient load that they can't handle.
Yeah, I think that's a good ratio. We have another question asking, where would you usually source nursing students?
So if we're talking about LPNs, a lot of the times those are more of a technical school. So not necessarily that 4-year university. So you could reach out to a tech school in your area. I know in Pennsylvania, the Department of Education actually publishes lists of all the approved LPN and RN programs in the state. So you know exactly which colleges and universities have those programs. With RNs, those are more typically the 4-year schools in the area that have the nursing programs that you'll be targeting. Yeah.
Hope that answers your question, Monica. So if anybody else has any more questions for Jennifer, keep them coming in. I wanted to just sort of find out from you, whenever you get, say, a new intake of hires, do you have a separate sort of graduate intake at the same time each year, or would they be coming in throughout the year in the orientation with older nurses?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say there's any one time of year that we get like a surge. Sometimes with an LPN more than an RN, those graduating classes, we might get, a larger number at once. But usually throughout the year, we are getting those hires. And they're going through that orientation program. They're working with a mentor, or somebody who's been in the facility for a while, to kind of get up to speed that way. But I wouldn't say there's like every May we know we're going to hire this influx of nurses to come into the facility.
That would be nice, though.
That would be great if we could rely on that.
Yeah. So if there's somebody, say, I imagine you've learned a lot, like the last several years of your career. Sounds like things are going well for you. If there's someone here on this call who's struggling sourcing nurses of any age, but particularly grads for their long-term care organization, what words of wisdom would you give to them?
So I think something that's helped me, especially when I'm working with the graduate students, when I am meeting with them face-to-face, so I'm not, again, doing that larger presentation, I'm actually talking one-on-one, I always make a note of their graduation date. If I'm available, I'll go to the graduation ceremony. I did that a lot pre-COVID, where I would go to the different graduation ceremonies. I'd make sure that they saw me, but again, it wasn't that recruitment pitch in that moment. It was I was there for them that day. That was their celebration. And I also, if I wasn't available to attend, I would always at least send them a text message congratulating them on that graduation and that momentous occasion for them. And that's something that I always got great feedback on. It's kind of, keeping that personal touch, because again, those nursing students, they know that they can go to 100 different places. But if they keep kind of seeing your name and, you really took that moment to send them that text message or go to their graduation ceremony, not a lot of other companies are doing that.
No, that personal touch is what makes you stand out. I love it. So do you have any closing comments or points that we haven't went over, Jennifer, that you'd like to mention to people?
I think just kind of, again, drilling down, and every time you're reaching out to a college or university to source those graduate students, you can't go into it thinking, what is this school going to do for me? If I send them this email that I need to hire 5 RNs, and I'm just expecting them to send it back to me with this list of graduates without giving anything of myself to them or of our company, that's not going to work that way. You really do need to develop and nurture those relationships. Work with the career development, work with the instructors, do informal settings with the students. Not everything has to be your recruitment pitch for your company. But the more you're able to get in front of those students, the more you're able to talk to them, the more they see you as a person and an individual, I think the higher your success is going to be.
Okay. Yeah, I love it. The personalization and the treating them like an individual, not just a number or a candidate, is what's working. It seems for everyone of every demographic and age group, but particularly if they're just starting their career, then you might be the first person in the industry that's showing them that attention.
I do also tell them that they can always reach out to me like, hey, even if you're not going to apply at Guardian, if you have a question about your resume or you had an interview and you felt like something was strange about it, like you can always reach out to me as well. Again, I want to be that almost friendly figure to them where I can keep that relationship going. Because like I said, in 6 or 7 months, if they realize they took a job that's not the best fit for them, they can reach back out to me at that point. So I kind of have people on the back burner that way as well.
Yeah, that's so cool. I'm going to bring back Patrick, and we are going to close this off. But if anybody has any questions, please post them in before we finish. I want to say thank you, Jennifer, for sharing your enthusiasm and your energy and your expertise. Patrick?
Hello. Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, Adam. That was really interesting. Lots of comments and questions. That's great. I see they're still coming here. We probably won't get to them all today. I noticed that the first link I sent isn't working at the moment, so to connect with us. So I've shared a few more links to connect with me and AppleChat, to join our Facebook group, Nurse Recruitment Secret, and also to subscribe for our monthly newsletters. So those are all in the chat now as well. There was a question, and I want to remind people that this recording is going to live on YouTube. So at the link where you found us is the YouTube link. You can find it there. You can share that with anyone and watch it in more detail later if you missed any of it. And let us know if you need that link if you can't find it for some reason. And lastly, we do host these webinars at least a couple times a month. So please keep in touch with us, connect with us, and we'll make sure you know about our upcoming webinars. So thanks everyone for your time. Any last comments, Adam or Jennifer?
I just see one more question before we go. Jennifer, how do you keep track if they haven't graduated? How do you remember to reach out to them?
So I actually do it a couple different ways. Our ATS will keep track of that for me. I can add them in as a passive candidate into our system. So I can kind of have them there. But then I'm also pretty old school. I'll make a note on my calendar to check in certain days throughout the year. Like if I, again, know their graduation date, I'll usually check in at least a month before that. And then I also love Excel. I'm old school. So those Excel documents are also really helpful to keep track that way.
Yeah, there's a million ways to do it. As long as you do it, I think that's the main thing.
Yeah, and it's whatever works for you. Some people hate Excel and will never go into it, but I have Excel documents for my Excel documents.
Yeah, me too, actually. Okay, great. Well, thanks for coming, everybody. And check out the links Patrick sent in the chat if you want.
I see lots of people are finding their way to our Facebook group now, so that's awesome.
Wonderful. Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thanks,
See you
everyone.
at the next webinar.
Thanks,
Bye.
Jennifer. Bye.
Bye.